It's been going incredibly well. So well that I hate getting this question because you can sound very much like the blind cheerleader of everything that we're doing. But 18 months in, we've kind of exceeded our own expectations on a scale level. We're reaching 5 million unique visitors a month across the world. 42% of those are from outside the U.S. We've been accessed in over 175 different countries at this point. So by those measures, we're quite happy with where we are. We've brought in on the commercial side of things, we've had over 50 blue chip companies ranging from the financial services industry to auto to luxury goods to technology and consulting services running advertising with us. And again, I think that's kind of ahead of our own expected pace at this stage of the game. So by those scale measures, as you note, I think we're doing quite well. It's been a good 18 months at least so far.
And on that commercial side, Quartz is one of the publications that has led the latest or current wave in sponsored content or branded content. Before some of the, if you like, legacy publishers who have lately adopted that ad format, what have you learned along the way about what the right recipe for native advertising is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've learned some actually genuine lessons there. One that may seem obvious is quality matters more than it ever has. If it's good quality content, it'll find an audience, people will share it, people will engage with it. So that's the first thing, is I think you have to be really stringent around holding yourself to a high standard of quality and your clients and advertisers. The other big lesson for me is in transparency. I think there was a thought in the early going of this move that we're not from us, but I think from marketers, from some publishers who I think wanted to take the easiest path, that letting the content sort of look and feel like edit and let a reader be confused was the easier, better way to do it. And I think it's the exact opposite. Consumers are sophisticated. None of us, if you think about your own focus group of one, want to be fooled. And so I think a transparent labeling of the source of the content is critical, not only from a respecting your reader standpoint, but what you find out on the other side of that is the ads themselves will actually perform better. I think you gain credibility. You have a greater likelihood of that content being shared, engaged with, and appreciated if you're clear about who it's from.
Mm. At the same time, we're seeing the rise of content marketing as a format. We're also seeing the rise on the other end of what I've heard referred to as a barbell. The rise of data-driven programmatic display sales methods. Do you think the two ends of that barbell can come together in any way? Can data inform native advertising?
Yes, yeah. I think over time we'll see sort of a pincer movement to keep carrying metaphors forward. I think over time we can and will. There are companies out there right now that I think are trying to programmatically handle native advertising that would give you the chance to sort of marry that data with it. I don't think it's an easy fix, but I don't think that the two will never meet. Let me put it that way.
Does Quartz want to remain free? Are there plans for payment products? And as a very analysis-led or premium publisher, isn't there an opportunity to charge?
I think there's an opportunity to charge somewhere down the road. I don't think we are, permanently dogmatic on anything. I think one of the things we have a strong conviction around at this stage of our life and at this point in the evolution of the ecosystem is that the free model is an important and useful one. The fewer barriers to entry that you can create for people who are discovering your content through social mechanisms, which is the primary way that traffic is derived from most original content sites today. Over 51% of our traffic comes directly from measurable social sources. That would be Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, what have you. And anything that you do in terms of a paywall, a reg wall, even an app download that sort of makes that a more difficult process is a suppressor of traffic. And when you think of the two outcomes of that, I think one is you lessen the impact of your journalism potentially. If you look at it, what's the journalistic mission here? If you're not read, if you're not shared, if you're not passed along, you have a chance to suppress that. And then certainly, obviously, if you're suppressing traffic, it gives me less of an opportunity to monetize that through advertising. So I think the short answer to your question is I don't think you'll see a paid model from us in the near term. But I certainly root for those models, those experiments out in the marketplace, because it would be terrific, obviously, to have that revenue source if we can over time.
So Quartz is quite pictorially heavy. There are a lot of charts in there, and we know that that is, you know, an effective way to show numbers, right? Especially in a medium where people like reading short form. So does that use of pictures, can that extend to another pictorial asset, which is video?
Certainly, absolutely. I mean, I think that that video is a natural, you know, an evolution toward video will be a natural place that Quartz will go over time. I think we are very disciplined currently in focusing on the core proposition and just really getting and being great at what we do, which is obviously storytelling in both a written narrative and, as you say, sort of a graphic narrative. But yeah, certainly I think video is a natural place to go someday.
Just finally, looking at a couple of publications that you might consider competitors, the recent relaunches of the Time and the Newsweek websites. You know, sorry to flatter you, but it feels to me like, in a way, you've pushed them to innovate, both on the technical redesign, but even on the tonality of some of the language they seem to be using nowadays. Do you feel that? How do you feel like you're fitting in around some of those analysis competitors at the moment?
Sure. I mean, the first thing I'll say is never feel bad about flattering. I'll take that every time. No, I think, yeah, you know, there's sort of there's conflicting visceral feelings in inside our organization. Some people are frustrated that they're copycatting potentially, and I think some of us look at it as you know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But I do think it is an indication that we've done a very good job of kind of understanding how the social mobile web works, have led the way with some what are seemingly simple and obvious innovations. But I think we've had the benefit of a blank canvas to paint on, and I think that still gives us, there are two things that still potentially give us an advantage there, is that there's not a lot of legacy thinking, infrastructure, all the rest of it to change or tear down in the adherence of these best practices, number one. And then number two is you still have to, like in any other, I would pose, any other business endeavor, you have to deliver at a high quality level in order for that to sustain itself over time. That means quality of thinking, quality of the journalism that we do, quality of the graphic presentation, quality of user interface is something that we'll continue to focus on.
Do any of these learnings flow back from Quartz to the Atlantic at any point, or is the idea still to, you know, never the twain shall those two entities meet?
No, I think it flows back and forth. We learn from each other all the time. I think the Atlantic obviously has always been known rightly for being a very, very high quality vehicle in terms of, I would say, things like intellectual integrity, depth of thought, and you know, you learn a lot of lessons that long form, for example, actually does very, very well on the web. It travels socially. Definitive pieces tend to get read, whether they're bookmarked in Pocket or whatever, and you're reading them later. That's a lesson that Quartz can derive from the Atlantic, and I think you'll see some of the best practices from Quartz's experiment drift into the Atlantic at some point. They'll remain two different brands, distinct missions and audiences, but it'd be crazy for us not to learn from one another.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jay.